Babies are being killed, women are being kidnapped, raped, or stripped on the streets, elderlies are being killed, and babies are being beheaded. It's strange views, strange images are coming to us from Israel since Saturday. There is a war is going on and people are being hurt in the land of Israel. And I've got Robert Spencer with us, who is expert on jihad and also has amazing knowledge on the history of Islam, to help us to think through what is the source of this evil, what is happening. Peace of Christ be with you, Robert Spencer. How are you?
And with your spirit. Good. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So there are lots of images are circulating on social media that Israel is being shaken. Terrorist group organization called Hamas, apparently right now it's identified as freedom fighters, are murdering and killing people, raping women, even going another level and beheading babies. What's happening? Why is this happening?
Well, we have to understand from the standpoint of Hamas, they are executing the wrath of Allah against the unbelievers. Allah is angry with the Jews because they did not follow Muhammad, because they worship Ezra as the son of Allah. Of course, no Jews actually do that, but it's in the Quran, chapter 9, verse 30. And so consequently, there's also, of course, I should say, the alleged occupation, the alleged oppression of the Palestinian Arabs. And all this leads to the Muslims acting in the way that we saw them act on Saturday, because the Quran in chapter 9, verse 14 says, "Fight them and Allah will punish them by your hands." And so while in the Bible it says, "Vengeance is mine," says the Lord, in Romans 12:19, as well as Deuteronomy 32:35, in the Quran, in this passage 9:14, it says that the Muslims execute the vengeance for Allah. Fight them and Allah will punish them by your hands. And so when they go and decapitate babies and rape women and massacre people wholesale, they believe they're righteous because they think they are the agents of Allah's punishment on evil people. And so they are the embodiment of what the prophet Isaiah says, woe to those who call good evil and evil good. Or what the Lord says, the hour is coming when people will kill you and think they're offering service to God. Here they are. Here we are in this hour.
Lots of sad images are coming, and what I'm hearing from you, you are giving me a little bit different version of what I'm hearing on the news. You are saying actually this act of violence or murdering, all this evil comes because Islamic sources are telling Muslims to do this towards Jews. Versus on media, what we are hearing is Israel was homeless and then went and then took the home of Muslims. Therefore, for last approximately 70 years, Muslims are being persecuted, being abused. Now it is freedom fighters. Hamas is being seen as a freedom fighters. Is stepping in to rescue its people.
It's not even true. None of it is true from beginning to end. For example, we hear that the Biden regime or the European Union or the United Nations is pressuring Israel about the occupation. And the media speaks about the occupation. And Hamas and Fatah speak about the occupation. But there's no occupation. What land is being occupied? If I went out on the street and asked people what land is Israel occupying, they would say the land of the Palestinians. But when was there a Palestinian state? When was there a time when that land was actually ruled by Palestinians? Never. There was never a Palestinian state. There was never even a Palestinian people until the 1960s. In 1948, Israel declared its independence, and all the surrounding Arab states went to war with it to try to destroy it, and they failed. But in all of the controversy about the founding of Israel, and there was a great deal, in 1948, nobody ever said Palestinians. There were no Palestinians. They didn't exist. They were Arabs. They were Arabs like the Arabs of Lebanon or Jordan or Syria. They only became Palestinians as a propaganda point in the 1960s because the whole world loves the underdog. And tiny Israel was standing against 22 Arab states. This huge conglomeration of Muslim Arab states, and then the non-Arab Muslim states like Iran that also hate Israel. And Israel is this tiny little state that's standing alone against them. And so Yasser Arafat and the KGB invented the Palestinians. And they would be an even smaller people, menaced by the massive Israeli war machine. But you look back in the 40s, in all the newspapers, in all the discussion at the United Nations, in all the analysis from all the countries, nobody's talking about the Palestinians. It's amazing that now everyone assumes that it's their land and it's occupied, and they didn't even exist over 60 years ago. And the occupation does not exist either. Not only was there no Palestinian state, but who does own that land? From 1948 to 67, Egypt occupied Gaza and Jordan occupied Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. And yet from 1948 to 1967, did you hear even one word about the Palestinians want their state? They hate the occupation. No, they loved the occupation when it was Egypt and Jordan. They only hate the occupation, the supposed occupation of Israel. What's the difference? Egypt and Jordan are Muslim. Israel is not. And so the Arabs, who are called the Palestinians today, they had no problem being in the government of Egypt and Jordan. They only suddenly discovered a Palestinian nationality when it comes to Israel. But who owns the land? Once again, the Ottoman Empire owned the land before Israel. What happened to the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire fell at the end of World War I. What did the Ottoman Empire do with the land? At the end of World War I, it made a formal cession. It was not a handshake agreement or something. This was a formal cession. They gave the land to the League of Nations, the precursor to the United Nations. The League of Nations, what did they do with it? They gave it to Britain. They gave it to Britain with explicit instructions. This mandate for Palestine, which was a region, it was never a people or a separate nation. It was like Staten Island. It's a region. Nobody ever thinks Staten Island is a nationality that should have its independence. Maybe that's coming. But anyway, the point of the mandate for Palestine was to create a Jewish national home. So Israel is the Jewish national home. So Israel is, by international law that still remains since the time of the League of Nations, the only country that has any claim to the land that supposedly it is illegally occupying.
So they have no problem when Muslim nations are ruling it, but they have problem when Jews are living alongside of them. Did I
Yes.
understand that
Well,
correctly?
Jews are ruling. They don't have problem with the Jews living there if the Jews accept the Muslim rule and
Yeah.
accept the dhimmi status and all the deprivations and discrimination that goes with that. That would be fine. Although at this point, actually, there have been several people, Mahmoud Abbas and others, have said there will be no Jews in the Palestinian state, none. So they won't even allow them the dhimmi status. They either have to convert or get out or be killed. But theoretically, they would be allowed. The problem is that they rule. The problem is that they have political power. And the Quran does not allow Muslims to submit to non-Muslim political power. As Maududi said, Sayyid Abu Allah Maududi, Maulana Maududi, the great theologian of the 20th century, he said non-Muslims have absolutely no right to wield the reins of power in any part of God's earth. And if they do, the believers have the responsibility to dislodge them from that power by any means possible. And so this is what's happening. The problem with Israel is that the Jews run it. If Muslims ran it, then it would be okay.
So What are your thoughts on the Hamas to be the freedom fighters instead? Like I'm seeing as some organization goes after the woman, rapes woman, kills woman, beheads the children, murders kids, even murders elderly. I am seeing them as like, okay, they are terrorists, and I'm looking from the perspective, well, they are terrorists who lives under the teachings of Islam. Yet, last 4 days, all over the social media, it has been expressed Hamas is a freedom fighters. They are rescuing their people. What is the difference between terrorists and freedom fighters, if there is any in this situation?
Well, in the first place, Hamas is a terrorist group just on the basis of how they operate. Why would they behead babies? Why would they go and kill people indiscriminately on the streets? What they want to do is frighten, terrorize the Israelis so that the Israelis think it's terrible to live here. Let's go somewhere else and get out. That's terror. That's what it is, to make them too frightened to stay there. So it is a terrorist group. Now, is it a freedom fighter group at the same time? Some people would say one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. It just depends on what side you're on.
Yeah.
But an honest Muslim would say, would admit, yes, they're a terrorist group. And we want to sow terror because Allah says, strike terror in the enemies of Allah, chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran. And so if Hamas strikes terror in the enemies of Allah by beheading babies, then that's all to the good. And any believing Muslim, it has to admit that's in the book. And if that's in the book, then they don't have really anything that they can say critical of what Hamas has done.
Yeah.
Now, the question of whether you believe they're a freedom fighter or not, that depends on if you think that they have a just cause. And I don't think they have a just cause, as I just explained, because they don't own the land. They never owned the land. There's no occupation. And Israel is actually a very moral army. There's a sophisticated Palestinian propaganda machine that insists that Israel commits atrocities all the time and manufactures those atrocities. Routinely, you see it on social media, a picture of a little girl, and it says the Israelis shot her at a checkpoint last week. And then you find out it's a picture of a little girl from Iraq from 2018, something like that. And I see this so many times. But people don't realize it when they see these things, and they just believe them. But the sophisticated propaganda machine is designed to make the Western left think, and Western people in general think, that Israel is this terrible abuser of human rights. Israel is actually the most careful army in the world to avoid civilian casualties. When they go into Gaza, they're going to blow up a building they found was the headquarters of Hamas. They warn everyone, we're going to blow the building up in 3 hours. You have 3 hours to get out. No other army does that and warns people to get away. There is no army that takes more care to minimize civilian casualties. But the problem is Hamas is playing the propaganda war very skillfully, and so they exaggerate the possibility of civilian casualties. For example, like they will put a rocket launcher in a schoolyard, and then they shoot the rockets into Israel. Then if Israel targets the rocket launcher, then they go to the international press and say, look, here are pictures. Israel blew up our school. And it looks like a terrible human rights abuse, but it's actually very skillful propaganda.
It's interesting what you said, how Israel army is giving warning that they are going to uh, attack a place or location. Um, it was, I think, early this morning, I was reading on the news article, it was saying Hamas said, if Israel doesn't give us warning before they attack anywhere, we will, they kidnap lots of Israelites, lots of people from Israel, from British people to American people to German people to Christians to Jews as well. So they're saying if Israel doesn't give us warning, the individuals we kidnapped, we will murder them. So not like it makes sense. I was just like reading. I'm just thinking why they are expecting one warning to be given, and you are telling it is in the habit of soldiers of Israel to give the warning before they attack somewhere.
Yes, that's right. And not only that, the Israeli commander yesterday or recently said they were going to cut off the electricity and water in Gaza. And everyone is all upset about that and saying, see how terrible the Israelis are. But actually, how many people knew that Israel gives electricity and water for free to Gaza when Gaza wants to destroy Israel? How many other countries give basic services to their mortal enemies? And then everybody criticizes Israel. It's very strange, really, because it doesn't coincide with the facts.
Little bit earlier, you expressed that this is not about geography, this is not about land, it is about religion and the people of the belief, what people believe. So you expressed, according to Islam, it is crime to be not Muslim. In this occasion, we are mainly talking about Jews. So according to Islam, it is crime to be Jew. So I was reading one of the article. It was saying Mohammed Al Zahar, he is the senior Hamas leader, says the fight is not about land. The entire planet will be under the Islamic rule. There will be no more Jews or Christian traitors. Uh, so I'm like kind of reading from here almost exactly what you are saying, versus I am turning up social media and news, and all I am hearing is people, Muslim people in under the land of Israel are being persecuted. They've been oppressed, and now freedom fighters are stepping in to just let them to even breathe. Versus leader of Hamas says, actually, no, this is not about the land, and sadly, seems that no one wants to talk about that part of it.
Yes. Well, the international media is on the side of the jihadis. The left is in control of the international media, and the left loves Islam. Now, why is that? Because they're both authoritarians. They both rule by terror. The left doesn't believe in freedom. The left wants to create all over the West one party states in which dissent is crushed. And they're working on this now. This is why the Biden regime is putting Trump on trial. There's never before been an American president put on trial. And if you look at, we don't have to get political here to say that if you look at the indictments, they are very, very flimsy. And there's a reason for that, because they are concocted. Like, for example, the first one from New York State, it's all these misdemeanors that were made into felonies for this to charge the former president with. Now, the idea behind that is to ultimately criminalize opposition in the United States, not just to get Trump in jail and prevent him from becoming president again. Whatever you think of Trump, this is what is happening. The supporters of the former president have also been persecuted, and even people who have complained at school board meetings when they don't like what's in the curriculum, when the curriculum is pushing all this terrible LGBT business and worse, that the FBI has classified these people as terrorists and gone after them accordingly. Now, all this is designed to establish an authoritarian regime in the United States. That's the goal. And this is why the left loves Islam too, because Islam is authoritarian. It doesn't allow for criticism. It doesn't allow for freedom of thought. They'll kill you if you leave or try to. And it crushes all dissent in terms of forbidding criticism of Islam, forbidding criticism of Muhammad, and so on. And so the left, the global left, the international left understood we can't destroy religion. The Soviet Union, they tried it. They couldn't do it. China tried it. They couldn't do it. Now, this round of communists, they're not going to try. They're not going to destroy religion. They're going to make it Muslim. Islam is fine with them because also Muhammad said, remember, obey your ruler even if he's an Ethiopian with a head like a raisin. Now, everyone repeats that to say, look, Muhammad was a racist. Sure, but there's more. What else is in that passage is that Muhammad was authoritarian. Muhammad wants to establish that you obey the ruler no matter what, even if he's outlandish, like an Ethiopian or something, in his view. So the left saw they couldn't stamp out religion. The left is authoritarian. They see an authoritarian religion that commands obedience to the ruler. Perfect. So they're bringing in massive numbers of Muslims into the West. It both destroys the character of the nations that they're coming to, their national dilutes the national identity, weakens the national culture, and it brings into the country all these people who are happy with authoritarian rule and happy to live under the ruler, even if he's crazy, even if he's outlandish. So that's why the international media that is behind all this, that is in favor of all this, I should say, and why the governments of the West, they're fine with what happened in Israel, because they want to encourage Islam and expand Islam, and that's what Hamas is all about.
It's such a heartbreaking that uh, while we acknowledge that whatever or whoever Islam touches, Islam destroys that. From child to elder, even to like even trees are or fruits are not safe under Islam. And now we are seeing left is coming alongside of it, and whatever left touch, it destroys as well. So two, they're like just they're just like one another, they fit one another well, but that destroys humanity. Like Islam brings death, left brings death. It's all very much messed up. And from Christian perspective, it just helps me to bring everything to foot of Lord Jesus Christ and pray. And I can't wait his judgment to come and then deal with all this. So you mentioned a little bit about left and news and social media, how it has been very biased on certain things. I can't show you the clips because they are very, very disturbing, but I'll just mention a couple of clips, assuming you have seen them. So there was a clip from Sydney. In There's a big opera is taking place, and then a group of Muslim supporters of Hamas terrorist organization are screaming, "Gas the Jews, gas the Jews." What are your thoughts on that? How Sydney is giving such a platform to those terrorist organizations and their supporters?
Once again, this is the leftist Islamic alliance, and it's because they see eye to eye that this happens. The Muslims scream "gas the Jews" in Sydney because they know that they're safe in Sydney. They know that the leftist rulers in Sydney and in Australia in general will not do a thing to stop them. They're afraid of them. They want to appease them. And so the Muslims know we can say whatever we want, we can do whatever we want, and there will be no consequences. Also, when the Muslims scream "gas the Jews," the left loves that as well, because the authoritarian, totalitarian impulse is also inherently anti-Semitic. Why? Because the Jews are the prototypical nation state, the nationality, the group, a nation, a group of people that has common characteristics. What I mean is this: throughout history, the Jews have held out, have not had a home for 2,000 years until the foundation of the modern state of Israel, and have held out against immense pressure from pretty much every other group in the world, living as small minorities in other countries and never assimilating or adopting the ways of the surrounding people. And this is one of the reasons why they've been so hated, because they refused to fit in and conform with what everybody else was doing. But think about what the authoritarian impulse is. It's to stamp out differences between people and to make everyone the same. You remember China under Mao Zedong and how everybody wore the same clothes? They didn't even have that much of an individuality. Everybody was just an automaton in the big machine of the state. And now this is always the left's aspiration, to destroy all the differences between people. This is why they always play class warfare, that some people work hard and they make money, and other people are lazy and they don't, or other people have various hardships or illnesses or whatever, and they don't do well, and other people do. People, the thing about how God created human beings is that we're all very different and have different abilities, as well as all kinds of individual differences. And so the forces that are arrayed against the true God, they want to destroy all those differences and make everybody the same, like cookies, gingerbread men coming out of a cookie cutter, and they all look the same. That's what they want to do. And so the idea is that the Jews are the big obstacle to that, because they are the foremost nation that has refused to assimilate and become like everybody else. So the left hates the Jews, and Islam hates the Jews. So when they say in Sydney, gas the Jews, the left says hooray.
Is it correct that according to Christian scripture, the land is given to the Israelites, and according to Islam, there is a land is given to the Jews as well? So therefore, like theologically, Muslims shouldn't have any problem that Jewish people live in the land God given to them.
I don't hold to that view.
Okay.
The Quran does say that the children of Israel were given the land.
Yeah.
And so I was just talking about this with David Wood the other night, and you can talk to him about it, because he agrees that he agrees that the Quran is not coherent. I agree that the Quran is not coherent.
Yeah.
But Islam does have a theology. Now, does Islamic theology allow for the children of Israel to have that land? No. The Quran does say that, but the Quran also says that the children of Israel disobeyed Allah and were changed into apes and pigs and are under the curse of Allah and all these other things. And then in chapter 98, verse 6, it says, the unbelievers among the people of the book are the most vile of created beings. What's an unbeliever among the people of the book? What does that mean? An unbeliever among the people of the book is a Jew or a Christian who doesn't become a Muslim. A believer among the people of the book is a Jew or a Christian who becomes a Muslim. And so when the Quran says, like in chapter 262 rather, that the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians, all the righteous will go to paradise, those aren't the Jews and the Christians like Jews and Christians we know today.
And the ones who
Those are the Jews and Christians who became Muslims,
Yeah.
who are believers among the people of the book. So they get the land of Israel, not the unbelievers among the people of the book.
Okay. Okay, God. So we disagree on that, and that's a good point, because we don't have to agree of everything. And also, you've got like Islamic tradition, which talks about how they are going to get rid of all the Jews and Christians in the land of Arabia stuff. So, have you seen the clips where girl was killed, murdered, and then stripped, and then shown as an example to the public in the car? What are your thoughts on that, if you have seen the clips on that?
Yeah, there again, that's designed to strike terror in the enemies of Allah, as the Quran directs. The Quran says strike terror in the enemies of Allah, and they take that seriously. So they think, if we kill this girl in this way and show her in this way, then everybody who sees this will be too afraid to cross us.
Yeah.
And they will say, we can't fight these people. They're too frightening. We have to surrender.
Such a shame, because there were certain Muslim groups, organizations, as well as Dawa gun members were talking about, they were celebrating this girl who's been just killed, and then talking about like how people who live in the land of Israel deserves this. And then it ended up, this girl actually not even live in Israel, she's just visiting from Germany. Like groups, as I said, Islam is like so dangerous and so ugly, celebrates the death, celebrates the torture, and then try to set example from that. Just like in every level, it is wrong. Have you come across with the clips how they are kidnapping this young girl who from the pictures looks like she's being raped, and then they're transferring her from back of the car to the back seat, and how Muslim people are going and spitting on it, and then they are screaming Allah Akbar. So what are your thoughts on why um, Muslims, or in this occasion, supporters of Hamas terrorist group, is looking at these young, valuable women and then sees them as terrorists who deserve to be killed, raped, and murdered?
Well, the Quran allows for that as well. And we have the passages, chapter 4, verse 3, 424, 23, 1 to 6, 33:50, and 70:30. All of those passages are about the captives of the right hand, as they are called. And those are infidel women who were captured in warfare and are considered to be available to be raped. And the Quran explicitly says you only have sexual relations with your wives and the captives of the right hand, who are the spoils of war. So that's what these women are. That's why they killed the men and took the women hostage, because they want to take these women and make them into the sex slaves. Now, people have been denying this as part of Islam yet again, but it's quite clear from the texts. It's quite clear from the tafsir, the commentaries on the text, the mainstream understanding of these passages in Islamic theology, and it's clear from the practice of other jihad groups, such as the Islamic State, ISIS, Boko Haram in Nigeria, and others. They all do this all through 1400 years also of Islamic history. In the history of jihad, I show that this is a common recurring feature of Islamic warfare, that the women are kidnapped and captured and kidnapped and raped and sold as slaves. This is just part of Islamic theology and law.
That means when we see the clips where there was a clip where Muslim turned to this lady who had kids, said, "No worries, we are not gonna kill you." He's not saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna show mercy to you." He's simply saying, "I'm not gonna kill you, but you are there to be uh, for me to uh, like rape you or you to be my slave." So it is in that context, and that is again something kind of people are missing. Kind of they're thinking, "Oh, see how this Hamas is showing kindness and generosity to people," but intention of Hamas is to keep those ladies, even their kids, in the intention of raping and using them as you expressed right hand or right hands. Um, there are some, I don't know how it is in USA, but in UK there are some demonstrations are taking place, not demonstrations actually, some street parties are taking place where supporters of Hamas are meeting in front of the embassies or on in the parks, waving the flag of Hamas, as well as celebrating the murder and torture of people who live in the land of Israel. Uh, what are your thoughts on like what is taking place in Middle East? Yet people who live in UK are actively supporting and encouraging that violence, as well as people who live in I don't know, in Australia, in Sydney, they are coming alongside of this war. Why they are not allowing war to take place there? But like it is like, can we say it is their war and then we keep away? But or we like why do we Muslim people are feeling that they need to come alongside of this terrorist organization and celebrate the murdering of those individuals?
Well, they hold the same beliefs. And so they think this is a wonderful victory for Allah and Islam, and that it's something that they hope to emulate. The countries where these demonstrations and celebrations have been happening, and they have been happening here as well as in the UK and in Europe and in Australia, they should take those as a warning, because the same kind of jihad activity we see in Israel today, we will see in the West very soon.
Yeah.
And the sympathy that these people are openly showing for these acts is an indication of that.
I find very difficult to understand. You use the term of wonderful victory. I know that's what Muslims are seeing. I know that's what Muslims are celebrating, but I find very difficult to understand heart of human beings, how they rejoice in the death or destruction of another human beings. Just my heart just doesn't, my brain just doesn't understand why would you celebrate such a thing. But I guess Islam plays very big role in their thinking.
Exactly. This is how Islam deforms the soul.
Yeah,
This is what marinating in the Quran and Sunnah will do to a human being. This is why the Lord says the time is coming when people will kill you and think they're offering service to God. That He's talking about, He's warning us about a time when people will be so uh, captive to evil that they will be allow themselves to be brainwashed and misled into thinking that evil is good and good is evil, as Isaiah said.
yeah,
And this is the essentially what the Muslims are doing in thinking that they're being righteous when they are sowing so much evil and committing so many atrocities.
yeah. So far, you've given us historical background of conflict between Israel and Palestine. You gave us theological reasoning for the this evil act is taking place over there. You talked about how um, media or how left is coming alongside of Islam and supporting this evil. You gave us little bit implications of theological applications of what is happening to non-Muslims in land of Israel. Any of last thoughts? What do you think the solution? Is there a solution?
Well, the solution is to get these people to leave Islam. And I know that there are many people trying to do that and working on that. And the truth will ultimately be out. But at the same time, it's virtually certain there will continue to be believers in Islam, and thus there will continue to be violence and attacks on innocent people in the world because this is part of Islam. Uh, what needs to be realized is that this is a religious war, but nobody really wants to face that. And so, what's almost certain is that the West will prevail upon Israel to stop, Hamas will not be destroyed, and will strike again later.
Well, we are seeing how Islam is peaceful religion. I think that opening our eyes once again, hopefully it will open the eyes of media as well. Robert Spencer, thank you very much for joining me, unpacking what is happening there and what are the reasons for it. Really, really appreciate your input. And thank you very much, everyone who will be watching us. By God's grace, we will see you again. Have a good day.